hungry.
All right, here we go. And let me go back to this. Okay. Wait, hold on. Oh, wow. Hold on.
Is it alright if I get food while we're?
Oh, no, yeah, go ahead. You're good.
Okay.
Okay. So, first question I wanted to ask is, what year of college you guys are in? I know it's only 4 of you guys, 3 of you in here, but just let me know what year of college you're in.
Freshman.
You're a freshman? Okay.
Yep.
Alrighty. And let me look at the chat. Oh, there was someone in the chat. Hold on. Goodness. Second year for Rebecca. Okay. Cool. All right. So that's good to know. So a lot of you guys, it looks like, want to kind of get a leg up on different things. So just to start off, before going into the 5 things, just want to share my story. So I'm an alumni from Cal Poly Pomona. I graduated with my biology degree in the year 2011. Took me about 5 years. And just like a lot of students in OJS, I was, first generation college student, low to no income. And so I went into it not really kind of figuring things out myself. And I feel like there are different things I'll be talking about in this webinar that I wish I knew. And so this is information that, I did research on, but at the same time, I'll also be inserting, my own experiences and letting you know things that I want you guys to know so that you guys don't make, the same mistakes that I made. And throughout the webinar, I'll ask different questions just to see where you guys are at with the 5 things. But since you guys are in your first or second year, it's okay if there are different things you haven't gotten to yet, but just for the sake of this, I'll still ask, right? So now we're gonna go into the 5 things to know before graduating. So the first thing is to get a general idea of what you wanna do after you graduate. And so it's okay if you don't have a specific idea, because I think a lot of times people think that by the time they graduate, they have to have a specific career path picked and they have to have a job lined up, things like that. Now, for some students, that will definitely be the case, but that won't necessarily be the case for everyone. Like, they may get through 4 or 5 years of college and still aren't totally sure, but and that's okay, but it's at least good to have a general idea. Because like for me, I knew when I graduated that I wanted to be a doctor. I was pre-med. I knew I wanted to be a general practitioner. I knew the amount of years of residency I wanted to do. But as you can see, I'm not in med school and I'm not a doctor. But the thing that I knew I wanted to do was I wanted to help people and improve the quality of life of youth and their families. And so that can mean a lot of different career paths. But the good thing is that even though I didn't go to med school, I still kept with the general idea of what I wanted to do. And so that's why it's important to at least have a good idea of what you want to do. So I know some of you guys are just barely starting college, but do any of you already have an idea of what you want to do after you graduate?
Yes.
Okay.
I want to work for a production company that has, great values, and then eventually own my own production company.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Production as in film?
Yes.
Oh,
I'm majoring in filmmaking. So.
Oh, okay. Cool. All right. Well, that's awesome. Okay. So, all right. Let me go ahead and move forward. So now, because I know there may be some of you, some students that weren't able to make this webinar and may not have an idea, or maybe Rebecca or Alexander, maybe you guys are still figuring things out. So now, it's, the question is, how do you get a general idea of what you want to do? And so the information I got for this portion of the webinar is from this website called, it's joinkoru.com. Oh, okay, cool. Got one more person. Welcome, Abraham. Nice to see you. Or at least know that you're here. I don't see you. But anyway, so I found this article that talks about 6 career boosting things to do before graduating. And I found it to be very helpful to put together this portion of the webinar. So here's a way that you can get a general idea of what you want to do before you graduate. The first thing to do is to ponder on these things, on these 3 things. The first is to ask yourself what motivates you. Now, that can be like something that you're really passionate about, like let's say you're watching the news or you're reading about something and something makes you really happy, really sad, or really angry, and you're like, man, I wish someone could just do something about this problem. That could be something that motivates you. The next thing is to figure out what you're good at. Now, it doesn't necessarily, what you're good at doesn't necessarily have to mean, you know, I'm good at writing, or I'm good at doing research, or I'm good at doing this specific technical skill. It could also be something like, I really know how to encourage people, or I'm very good at, you know, being a good listener, or I'm very good at public speaking. Like, it can be technical skills, but it could also be more of interpersonal skills as well. So those are things you need to think of in terms of what you're good at.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, what career paths line up with both your motivation and with your skills? So like me, for example, I know that what motivates me is, you know, wanting to help out youth and help them life. And I know that I'm good at, you know, research. I'm good at taking information and communicating it. There's different things I'm good at. So taking those 2 things can mean many different career paths. I could work for the government. I can work for a nonprofit. I can work for a business. Like, there's all kinds of places I can go. But the good thing is that this helps me to get a general idea of what I want to do with my life, basically. So the second thing to get a general idea is to do an informational interview. And I'm not sure how many of you have heard of or done one of these, but this is basically where you're thinking to yourself, okay, I think I have an idea of what I would like to pursue as a career. Let me see if I can find someone that is in a career. And, you know, maybe let's say I make an appointment to find out what you do at your job, find out what you like, what you don't like, find out, you know, what is your day-to-day? Like you may have an idea of what, for example, what a nurse does. Like, okay, this is what a nurse does. But then as you sit down and actually talk to a nurse, that's when you'll actually find out, okay, maybe this is something I don't want to do after all. And they're like, okay, well, at least I know I can check that off my list and move forward and think about something else. And so doing these kind of things, it's really good to really get an idea of narrowing down what career path that you want to pursue. And the last thing, at least according to the article I read, that to do to get a general idea is to put it on paper. So after you took some time to reflect on your motivations and your skills, and after you've maybe talked to a few people in the field, now it's time to write it down, make it plain so that you can really see it and visualize it. And so the article presented this example. And this is what you can write down. I'm passionate about, you know, insert your motivation, and I'm interested in insert the company. And so I'm pursuing opportunities in insert the work that incorporates your skills. Now, this can look really, you know, abstract, but I did make an example of one that I made based off of my motivations and my skills. So this is what I would have written down. I'm passionate about empowering underserved people, and I'm interested in an organization that works with underserved people. So I'm pursuing opportunities and developing effective youth programs. So this may not be super specific, but it does provide me with an idea of what kind of organization to pursue. I would want to pursue an organization whose mission is to empower youth, especially those that may not have a lot of resources or access to resources. And so, like, for example, Operation Jumpstart, that's one of the things that's a big mission and vision that they have. And so what this I have written down really lines up with what I'm pursuing currently. And so doing this will really help you to get at least a general idea of what you want to do, at least visualizing at least. So now to what I talked about, especially for Abraham since he just joined us. This is what you do. First, you ponder on these things: motivation, skills, and a career path that lines up with both your motivation and skills. The second being doing an informational interview with someone in your field. And lastly, put it on paper so that you can visualize what it is that you want to do, at least have in terms of a general idea of what you want. All right. Now move on to number 2, and that is network, network, network. I can't emphasize this enough. Like, this is something that I wish that I did when I was in college, because I was just so focused on, going to class, volunteering, and making sure that I checked off, the boxes when it comes to applying to med school. But I didn't really think about building relationships with people at my school or people in the field. So next question I have for you guys is, do you have a professional relationship with at least one of your professors or someone in your field of interest?
Yes.
All right. Cool, Aaron. Okay. Rebecca, Alexander, or Abraham, you guys can answer in the chat. But yeah, this is something that is really important, because as you move forward and thinking about your career, let me look at the chat. Someone wrote something. Hold on. Sorry. I can't see it. Hold on. Okay, cool. Abraham said, yes, I do. Okay, good. That's good. Okay. So, yeah, it's really important to have a relationship with someone in your field, or at least a professor, because while you're in college, it's important to have someone to talk to about your different aspirations, someone that has, that is further ahead than you professionally, and they'll be able to give you guidance and give you advice. And not only that, but when you're applying for jobs or applying for internships, they could give you a letter of recommendation. They could be a reference for you when you apply for a job, because a lot of times the applications, they ask you for 3 references, especially different jobs ask you for a reference from a professor. Sometimes they ask for, a lot of times they ask for references from, a former or current employer, but a lot of places, especially the ones that ask for specific qualifications, they'll definitely likely ask for a reference from your professor. And so, or at least one professor. And so it's important to really form a relationship with them for that reason. So yeah, letters of rec, job references. They also may be great people to network with and provide you with someone to talk to for an informational interview. Like, let's say any of you are interested in teaching. You may be like, hey, I really want to be a high school teacher, or I'm thinking about being a high school teacher, but I'm not sure if that's what I want to do. Do you know of anybody I can talk to learn more about that field? You never know, like, there may be a professor that knows somebody in the field that you're interested in, because a lot of them have very dense networks. They don't necessarily always have people that they're connected with within their own field. They can also be connected with people in other fields as well. And so it's very good to take advantage of your relationship with professors, and they'll connect you with professionals in different fields of interest. Also, and for some of you, I know you're barely starting college, but definitely keep this in mind. It's important to connect with your alumni network. Now, how that's done will likely differ from school to school, but what thing that a lot of them have in common is that they have mixers, networking events, but they also have different professional development workshops and seminars where they bring in speakers that are alumni and are likely very much well-renowned in their field. And so it's very important to really stay connected, because a lot of they're movers and shakers all over the world, and it's great to really connect. And because a lot of times, if they know that you went to the same university and graduated as them, they'll be very likely to very much refer you for a job, or refer you for an internship, or hey, I heard you're interested in this. Why don't I have a good word for you and get an interview? A lot of that happens when you're connected with an alumni network. So it's important to really keep that in mind after you graduate. So the third thing to think about before graduating is to get yourself together professionally. Now, my next question is, do any of you have a resume?
I'm starting from scratch again in my new resume. So yes.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, from Abraham and no from Rebecca. Okay, that's cool. Well, it is not too late to get started with the resume. So basically, it's important to have someone else coming in. Anthony, okay.
Oh, Anthony, hey, Anthony. Hey. It's a group thing.
Right. Oh, right. Okay. So just to catch up, we're talking about getting ourselves together professionally. So the first thing to do is to learn how to write or update your resume. And for those of you that may not have done that, or for those of you that already have, but you may need some assistance, it's important to get in contact with people at your career center after school. Because a lot of the career centers, they actually hire people that are professionals with developing resumes, cover letters for applications, all kinds of things in that area. So since that's what they're there for, it would be a very good idea to take advantage of that resource. The next thing is to create a story or elevator pitch. And so the reason why this is really important is because when you're applying for a job, or if you're networking with someone, they may ask you the question, can you tell me about yourself? Or some kind of similar question. And, rather than, drawing a blank, it would be good for you to have a general idea of what you want to share. Now, for those of you like Anthony and Abraham that joined a little late, earlier in the webinar, I was talking about how it's important to kind of put together a statement that talks about your motivation and your skills and the area that you're interested in doing for a career. And so that statement is actually really good for your story or elevator pitch. So what I shared earlier about wanting to pursue areas of that's perfect. If someone wants to ask me about myself, that's a great way to start. And these stories are also really good when it comes to putting together a cover letter. It's great in interviews, just having a general 30-second blurb about yourself is really good in those situations. Next, it's important to clean up your online presence. Now, as a lot of you may or may not know, I don't want to assume, in the news, there are a lot of, different politicians, public figures that, they may be a certain way, in the present time, but people look things up in their past, in terms of, their tweets, the posts they put on Instagram or Facebook, and they find problematic things. Now, yes, they may no longer, believe those things that maybe said when they're young. And whether you guys, believe that it's right or wrong for people to, hold judgments about those things, it's, that's not that's irrelevant. It's like, we want to put ourselves in a situation where people could smear our character based on things that we tweeted in a moment, So this isn't to say that you shouldn't share things that you believe in, certain stances or values or beliefs. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't share those things if you feel like it will add to an important conversation. But if it's something that you feel like people may misunderstand or, or whatever, it's okay to keep that to yourself. We don't have to post every thought that we have in our heads. So, because potential employers could look for things like that. Like, I've heard about stories of employers, looking up things on Twitter or looking up things on Facebook. Like, there are, not all of them do, but there are some of them, especially those that are really savvy, they know how to do that. So it's really important to just be mindful of what you post on social media. And lastly, for this section, it's important to create or update your LinkedIn profile. So I don't know how many of you have a LinkedIn or have heard of LinkedIn, but it's basically, I'll show you mine as an example. It's basically just like social media in a way, except in this type of platform is where you post, your resume, different things about yourself professionally. And so as you can see, this is my profile, this is my current position, and then this is a summary that I have talking about myself and my interests, and then these are all of my experiences. And so the great thing about LinkedIn is that a lot of organizations actually put up an in LinkedIn. And so if you go looking on here for a job or an internship, they can just readily look up your profile and your resume in one place. So it's very beneficial, and it's very much a very effective networking tool, especially when you're looking for a job or an internship and all that. So it's one of those things that's really important to develop. Okay. Number 4. The fourth thing you need to do to know before you graduate is put yourself together financially. Now, I know you guys have likely heard a lot of these things, but it's important to, really think about this and build good habits while you're in college so that by the time you graduate, you don't have to have a whole lot of stress. Now, the question is, do any of you have a monthly budget?
I just did.
Not really.
I just did one. So this is my grade of like that.
I say like 100, but like it's not like, because I prioritize first and then whatever's left I use.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Okay, so the thing about like having a monthly budget, it's not something that has to be something really, complicated. It doesn't have to be some huge old Excel spreadsheet. It can just be something as simple as just keeping track of your income and your expenses. And so the cool thing about keeping a budget, well, not cool about keeping a budget, but the cool thing about this is that there are different phone apps that you can use to keep a budget. If you bank with like a major bank like Bank of America or Chase, There are budgeting tools on their mobile app so that you can be able to keep track of your expenses. But one important thing to take away, because this can, rather than making this overly, complicated, is just to keep in mind, that whatever money that you have coming in, whether it's your paycheck, whether it's your financial reimbursement, whether it's your scholarship money, whatever money you have coming in after your tuition is paid, that'll of course cover your expenses, but it's also important to start to establish an emergency fund or savings. And I know that isn't, a lot of times doesn't sound very, fun to talk about, but, the question is, why is it important to save? And the reason why is because and rather than, I know for some college students, they make use for emergencies. And yeah, like it's very convenient to use a credit card, but when you use a credit card, you accrue interest. And you end up having to pay more for that emergency if you use a credit card. So it's better to instead just have a safety net aside so that, let's say your car breaks down, or let's say that you don't have health insurance and you had to go to the hospital and you have a hospital bill, or you just have to get or
I'm attending.
anything.
Oh, yeah?
Just have, money aside for emergencies so that and you don't have to stress out asking your parents for money. You can find another, like different kind of jobs, you can cover these expenses, or use your credit card and max out the credit card because you weren't anticipating this emergency. So how much you put in savings is for your emergency fund, but so important to for every semester or every quarter, if you're in a quarter system, put a little bit of money aside so that you start to build up your savings, you can start to build up your safety net. So it's really important to have in case of emergency. And I know some of you are just starting college, so this will apply to you. But for those of you that will be watching this later, that are in class, it's important because 6 months after you graduate, you have to start paying off your loans. Some people may not even be doing that. But for those of you that are, that you have to do. Now, this is where you have to contact the financial aid office to find out more information about how that works. Because everybody's going to be
This hot dog's not good for you.
Go to your financial aid office to find out more information, especially as you get closer to graduating. Right. Now on to the last one. Right. So the last thing to know before you graduate is to not compare yourself to other people. Now, as it is important to talk about because especially in college and different people and different paths, sometimes can help but wonder if you're falling behind or if you are doing things right because you look to your side and your classmates and so it's talking about. So last question is the direction in which your life is currently going.
I feel good. I feel great. I feel like my life's going in the direction I want it to.
Good. Right. Okay, is there anybody else that wants to share?
For me, I personally say that it's a bit hard Just because there's so many classes that I have to get done in 4 years.
I was like, are you like, that's so
Okay.
Hey, Anthony.
And is it Anthony?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Cool. Abraham. Okay. Right. So it looks like you guys are kind of on that spectrum, but for the most part, you feel the pressure, but you feel like it'll be okay.
Yeah. I mean, it'll work itself out because lots of people have done it before.
That's a good attitude to have. Right. So the reason I asked this question is because, at least I know for me, like there were times where I felt like, in terms of my college education, those of you that joined in late, I went to Cal Poly. I was studying biology because I wanted to be a modern medicine, but I was thinking about because I saw a lot of my friends and classmates, they were becoming doctors, they were doing a lot of different things. And my grades that they were doing, and I don't know, I kind of felt like I was falling behind, and that kind of got to me, and it took a long time for me to just be okay with the going. But I know I was a lot of times, and a lot of times we look to left and right, and we reassess the direction that we're going in, whether it's right or wrong, based on how other people are doing. And so that and so an important takeaway is just remember that everyone has a path. Now, yes, professors, different mentors, the path that you're going on. For lack of a better term. But at the end of the day, it's okay if,
What'd you have for breakfast? What was yesterday's breakfast?
I asked them
Okay, so at least it was kind of substantial.
Yeah, a lot of people go into business, like they go into the private sector, but your heart may be thinking, you know what, I want to go into the nonprofit world. And some people may think that's kind of crazy, but if that's what you want to do, it's okay. And so it's really important to understand. It's okay if you're, if you are going to the beat of a different drummer, because everybody has something different to contribute. So during those times where things are getting tough and you're thinking, okay, maybe I should do something, different, because it's getting really difficult, or it seems like I'm not getting as far ahead as everybody else is. It's okay. Like, that pressure will be there, but it's just important to just, keep going. It's important to have that grasp now where you have people, a whole bunch of other opinions.
That's father. It's gonna capture a lot.
And lastly, all of you have something to offer to the world. She wants to go. She wants to have a film production company, and some of you may want to go into different fields. And how you guys go about doing that, some may not understand. But you know what? It's okay because I'm not your mother. And someone may think that or it's not very lucrative or whatever. But it's okay because if everybody thought the same, we wouldn't be able to solve any of the world problems.
So it's
Like, let's say, for example, everybody, let's say that those people wanted to address the problem of poverty. Have another person joining us. Oh, Axel. Okay. Hey, Axel.
Axel, hello, Axel.
We're just about to end.
Axel is the best.
Me?
Oh no, I was saying hi to Axel. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. But okay, so let's say, for example, that there was a group of people that wanted to solve the issue of poverty. So, there may be someone that goes into the nonprofit sector and, feed the homeless, for example. Or there may be someone that's like, you know what? I think there's something in the government. So they may, go into, being a congressman, or they may go into being a state representative, because they feel like they can make a difference on the policy level. Or there may be someone that's like, you know what, I want to build a business and hire people that, really are down on their luck and they need a job. And so where I can hire people so that they can get them, pick up things from, get up off their feet in case they were experiencing some hardship. And then when they're ready to move on, they can move forward. There's all kinds of ways to solve that one problem. Now, there may be some people that feel that one solution is better, but in reality, there's different ways to address a problem. And so it's important to know that as you're going through college, that you may start to get some ideas or as you are, talking to different people in your class, as your professor is talking, and you may think, I think I have a solution to, a potential solution to this. And some people may think it's crazy. Some people may think it's not effective, but, it's, at the end of the day, it doesn't really, matter. If you feel like it's effective, if you really believe in that, then it's important for you to move forward and, forge on with that. So, yeah, just know that you have something to offer. It doesn't look like what everybody else is doing.
Why did you ask me today?
You have a unique contribution to give. So it's important to really keep that in mind as you go through college. And it's important to really grasp that before you graduate as well. Okay?
And then this was the South Hall area.
That's the last of that. So this is just an overview of the 5 things. So the first thing, especially for those that came in a little late, get a general idea of what you do after you graduate. Number 2 is to network. Network. The third thing is to get yourself together professionally. Fourth thing is to get together financially. And the 5th thing is don't compare yourself to others.
That's what I did for this.
So that's it for this webinar, at least the concept of the webinar. And so, do any of you have any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Okay. Everyone, anyone else have any questions? There are no questions. So, right, since there are no questions, I'm going to go ahead and thank you all so much for your time. My very first webinar, and I really appreciate the interaction with some of you in the chat and on video. And there's going to be a survey that I would like you guys to fill out.
Okay.
Email to all of you. So it's just a couple of questions, and when you're finished with this, you can email it to me. My email address is here. So, yeah, that is for the.
Alright.
Okay. Anthony. All right. Thanks, Abraham. See you later. Okay. All right, guys.
Bye-bye.
For the webinar. Again, thank you. I'll send you guys the survey. So you all.
I'm out.
Who's in charge of